Oh, hi. Let's take a seat.
Thank you.
Okay. And you are?
Oh, I'm Mr. Gordon. I work for Furland Advertising.
Oh, I
Agency.
contacted you about the
Yeah,
PSA, right?
PSA.
All right. So I'll give you a background information about why we are here.
Mhm.
So 8 years ago, my brother passed away because of a massive heart attack. After receiving a temporary artificial heart, he received a heart transplant through the Donate Life organization. But sadly, he passed away a few months later.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was very unfortunate. The transplant we got through Donate Life gave us hope, though, and an extra 6 months with him. We will forever be grateful for this and to the donor. Our agency found this as a passionate act, and so we came up with the idea to make a PSA on the importance of organ donation.
I see. Well, sir, you have my word that my partner and I, Spec, will do our best to portray organ donation through this PSA.
Thank you, Gordon. So, after brainstorming about how to approach the PSA, we came up with this idea. Since organ donors have a reputation for being generous and compassionate, I want to create an inspirational PSA which gives the millennials something to relate to while simultaneously encouraging them to donate organs.
Yeah, I think a symbolic representation of a generous donor would be ideal for the PSA. Maybe we can start off with the announcement with the symbol of organ donation, and then the clips will start rolling in, showing a kind, successful man. This person will then decide to become an organ donor, which will give the watchers something to aspire to.
So, in short, you want it to be straightforward.
Basically, I mean, ambiguous ads don't really have much success because the audience doesn't, well, they can't relate to it. I think there must be some intimacy between the audience and the protagonist for an announcement to be creative and successful.
For the intimacy, we can have an anecdotal approach. This might make the PSA seem like a short story, and which will lead the audience to be more acquainted to which will let the audience to be more acquainted with the protagonist. I guess the intimacy will help. And I mean, if the audience feels closer to the PSA and can put themselves in the protagonist's shoes, we will be able to convince them to be donors, which is our main goal, right?
Yeah, that'll definitely be useful. An appeal to pathos is an indispensable tool in persuasion.
How about we introduce some appeal to logos?
Yeah, that might be a good combination.
Exactly, because with pathos we can hook the audience in, and then if we fire them with information, then I think they'll be immediately convinced. And we can provide data like 8,000 people die annually because they don't receive the organs they need in time. And I think this can not only provide founded evidence for our PSA, but also evoke sympathy and a feeling for the need to provide help for the many that don't get these organs.
Yeah.
And I think we will then successfully convey our message, don't you think?
I think it's a good idea to add information, but in my opinion, it is important to focus more on the plot. If there's too much information, we might lose the audience attention. We don't want that. So it is important to have a balance between information and plot, because it can be a wolf in a sheep's skin, and that'll worsen your product.
I also think we should have an appeal to ethos. So I think the credibility of organ donation is needed. Do you think it's implied throughout the PSA?
Yeah, and we need that element of credibility so that the audience can trust our PSA. This trust contributes to the intimacy that you mentioned before.
And how is that?
Well, the fact that Donate Life, the organization, is supporting the whole organ donation creates that credibility.
Oh. And how will this help the process of persuading them?
With credibility, the audience won't doubt our PSA, and with the full trust, we won't only have intimacy, but we would also be able to absorb the provided information more easily.
Good point. I think it's good that two PSA agencies like us are working together to raise awareness on such issues.
I agree, it's a great cause.
Now that I've heard your opinion, I have a recording of the focus group I have interviewed a few weeks ago. Do you want to hear this discussion?
Sure.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Before we begin, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Chris Mumford. I'm the managing director of the Martin Agency, and I'll be moderating this focus group. If you have been to any focus groups before, you will know that this does not really happen where the manager is actually carrying out the focus group discussion. But I have decided to do this because I have a personal connection with the topic of organ donation, And I think this will be convenient too because I'll be able to provide feedback directly. And I'll be able to respond to some of your ideas as well. Okay, so before we start, I want you to know that there are no right or wrong answers, so feel free to state your mind and participate. Um, so if everyone could please introduce themselves and give us said consent for us to record the discussion and refer back to it later. So,
Hello, my name is Kuba. I give you my consent to participate and record the focus group.
My name is Robert, and I also give you my consent. And on a side note, we're just both representatives of two separate focus groups of 8 people, so we'll be referring to our notes that we took from our groups.
all right. If you're ready, I'll start with broad questions and then I'll narrow it down. I may call a timeout on some people to give a chance for others to speak. So, starting off, after watching the announcement, what was the first impressions you got, and how did it make you feel as it approached the end? I would like to let you know beforehand that the target audience is the millennials who will soon be eligible to apply for organ donation.
I liked how the PSA was straightforward and how the theme was easy to catch on to. The scene started off with the obvious characteristics of a generous and kind person, and looking at the progression of the plot, it was very easy to grasp the fact that the presented person was an organ donor, since he showed the symbol of organ donation.
Yeah, we thought the PSA was effective because it gave the millennials, who, as you said, were the target audience, something they wanted to aspire to because the protagonist is rich and well off and kind and everything you'd want to be.
That was exactly the effect we were aiming for. And to avoid further confusion, we made the advertisement straightforward and easy to understand. So, moving on to the next question, what do you guys think we could change to make the PSA more effective?
Well, although the PSA was straightforward and did not circumvent to the topic, I think it might be too conventional. All announcements are like this. It would stand out if there was a plot twist at the end. And if done correctly, this can be instrumental to creating a very effective PSA.
I see. That's an interesting approach. Could you please elaborate?
I'm not sure if this is the correct term for it, but you could try to introduce some situational irony into the ad. I mean to say, when something happens which is totally different from what would be implied throughout the most of the announcement.
I agree. This could be used to create a very effective PSA. How do you suggest we have situational irony in the announcement?
With situational irony, I think we can create some kind of suspense that will keep the audience interested throughout the whole announcement. You can build character for a significant part of the advertisement.
Hold on, Kuba. Let Robert talk for a second.
Yeah, so following on with that, instead of the current idea with a successful man, you could have a protagonist as a character who the audience would never be able to predict was an organ donor. But as the PSA approaches the end, due to some unexpected consequence, the person would actually become an organ donor, which would be our plot twist. If you were able to send the correct message while following the idea, you could create something which would be as, if not more, persuasive than the current PSA idea.
I'll keep that in mind. I've gathered many valuable ideas from you, and I'll make sure I incorporate those in the PSA. I'll end the recording now, and you may leave now. Thank you. So, what do you think?
There are some good and valid ideas we see from those focus groups, but my question is, who are those people who participated?
On the invitational flyers, I made sure those who volunteer had prior experience on literature and mass communication, basically.
Oh, I see. Can I take the recording? I'd like to look it over with my colleague Spec.
Sure. I'll be emailing you the recording later on today, so if that's not a problem.
Yeah, that's no problem. Thank you. So let's start off. What were some of the ideas you thought we could use to alter our current announcement?
One of the focus group people suggested we could introduce situational irony into the PSA. I thought about this and thought we could create some kind of suspense that would keep the audience interested throughout the whole announcement. There would be a character build up a significant part of the advertisement. So instead of the current idea with a successful man, we could have the protagonist as a character who the audience would never be able to predict was an organ donor. But as the PSC approaches the end, due to an unexpected consequence, the person would actually become an organ donor. which would be our plot twist. If we send the correct message while following this idea, I think we can create something even more persuasive than the current idea we have.
Yeah, that's certainly one way to approach it. And I think it's better, too, now that I think about it, because our current idea has a major limitation. By having the main character as a rich, successful person, we would almost be saying that the millennials need to be saying those things to be an organ donor. This places the PSA out of reach for people and might end up discouraging this further, while in reality is that you only need to get your driver's license to be eligible to apply as an organ donor. So how about instead we have the main character shown as a lower class person? The PSA would appeal to the largest audience possible, since people who can relate to the protagonist would be encouraged to apply, while people who are well off would still be affected because the announcement would not be biased towards only one group in society.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. I would start with an unethical man, and towards the end, we might implement the situational irony to make it more entertaining. This would make the PSA more appealing compared to other PSAs that are usually considered as boring and tedious.
Yeah.
The protagonist would be a jackass, mind my language, whose character we slowly build up by showing their daily routine, which would have many immoral acts. This person would then sign up as an organ donor, and then this element would come as a shock and a realization that good can be found in everybody.
Yeah. Also, apart from the visual elements that we can use to portray the jerk organ donor, we can also add some literary elements. We can have some slang words written on his car, give him tattoos, and maybe have him curse at young kids, and maybe give him cigarettes if we're edgy. But to exaggerate his malevolent demeanor and disregard for everyone.
So you're saying we should have a strong depiction of this trait right from the start. But won't people be awestruck by the depiction?
Well, since the target audience is millennials, as you said, I think we can assure that this approach will be more appealing to them because the youth of today will find it easier to relate to a person with a rebellious nature. Generally, adolescents tend to prefer powerful and dynamic elements in the story, so instead of a hackneyed character who is willing to help out everyone, I think it'd be better to introduce a unique and conspicuous character that immediately garners attention.
Also, I want to hear about your opinion on the information on the end of the demo announcement. Personally, I find it a bit too overwhelming. An impactful story with the elements I mentioned above will have a larger impact on the audience than a bunch of numbers and details and data. I am sure the audience won't take the time and effort to read and digest the information you are trying to provide.
Yeah, give me a second, writing that down. But if we get rid of the information, don't you think the announcement will be taken as a light topic?
I'm sure the idea of donating organs is already seen as a controversial and serious idea. How about we imply information instead of directly saying it?
Yeah, we could provide the data as an anecdote.
And how do you think you can do that?
Well, after the jerk dies, you can show his generosity and how it affected the others through organ donation. That will show how one person can save many lives, which is one of the main points in your data. You don't have to show the exact number of people he saved because that gets lost on people anyway.
I guess that'll work, because then we won't be interrupting the flow of the anecdotal format we had from the introduction. I guess that will act as a guide for the audience that allows them to understand how one person can save many lives through a simple and generous act while implying information at the same time.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. I think it's time now. It's been almost 2 hours talking. I've gathered many valuable ideas from you, and I'll make sure I incorporate those in the PSA. Hey, Gordon, I'd like to introduce you to Leo over here.
Ah, Mr. Gordon, we meet at last. I've been appointed to specificate the order of events in the PSA.
Nice to meet you, Leonardo. We have to submit our complete advertisement to Furline in a few weeks, so can we see what you have?
I showed him our brainstorm a few days ago, and I think he has some stuff ready.
Oh, so you have a sketch.
Of course, here it is. Would you like me to go through the panels with you?
Yeah, that'd be great. I'll just add some comments as you go along.
I'll also clarify some elements as we go through the panels.
Sure. So, here we have the first panel.
Oh my, what is that?
That's the exact reaction I wanted to hear from the audience.
Oh, that is a job well done. I wanted to have an impactful punch-in-the-face introduction. of the protagonist named Coleman Sweeney.
Or those blanks left on the sides of the car.
I don't have a full idea on that yet, but I'm planning to add something unexpected, which would be at a balance between humor and vulgarity to show the nature of Sweeney.
I see. So as Mumford explained, you're trying to add some detail that is completely incongruent to what the public would expect from a typical organ donor.
Yes, that's basically it. The general setting of the entire announcement will be a typical urban neighborhood in the United States. Firstly, the country has to be the United States, since the Donate Life organization estimates over 100,000 people waiting for organ donations there. And the protagonist will be similar to many all over the country. Just wait and see what I have next.
All right then.
So for the following scenes, I'm thinking of adding more details that introduce Coleman as an asshole. The narrator will be repeating the words so that the anecdote basically engraves the idea that Coleman is a jerk. I think this is the best way to clearly let the audience know that he is someone you don't expect to be an organ donor.
All right. Can you go over them one by one?
Here. So,
Alright.
when Sweeney is first introduced, his nature is instantly revealed. As a person who does not fit into the social norms, he urinates in a bottle of beer, throws it out of the window. The next scene shows him in a laundry room, where he takes the clothes out of occupied machines, and he's also stealing panties.
Oh, I like that idea, especially what you wrote here on what the narrator would say. Coleman Sweeney felt like the whole world owed him something. That definitely creates a contrast to what he does, consequently, as an organ donor, doesn't it?
How's that?
Well, if we look at the idiom of the world owing you a living, it basically means that you think that the world revolves around you. This might be his initial thoughts, but later, after his death and his donations, many people's lives revolve around his generosity, since without him, they would not be able to live a life later on. I think that narration is an important factor because it also functions as a foreshadowing effect that implies his generosity and importance to many people's lives.
Oh, you'll like what I have planned at the end with the organ donations. Just wait, you'll love it.
Okay, let's go through the panels in order. Calm down, guys. Let's look at the next scene. So, until now, the announcement portrays Coleman as an asshole to the public. But to be more specific, I tried adding some other elements, like I added a handicapped grandmother stalling across the street and some children, just to add his universal hate towards the society.
I see. I can notice how you're trying to emphasize the protagonist's trait of being a jerk before you introduce the plot twist, right?
That's exactly it.
Okay. What will the narrator say in this scene, though?
I'm planning to make the narrations help emphasize the traits as well. For instance, in the scene with the kids coming to trick or treat, the narrator can say Coleman Sweeney was born to being an asshole. In short, well, Mumford can manipulate language and imagery to engrave Coleman's immoral actions. Now, the best part of the announcement is here. Coleman Sweeney dies. In this post, I drew Coleman lying on the ground on a restaurant. The narrations are important here since they create a contrast between the literary and the visual elements.
After Coleman faints due to a sudden brain tumor, the narrator explains how complaining about the extra fries and a $1.99 breakfast is a typical Coleman Sweeney play.
Well, that's a really smart rhetorical device. The narration basically undermines the gravity of the situation. Also, Mumford suggests adding the same contrast on the next panel, where Coleman is lying on the bed and the narrator describes how generous and majestic he is.
Yeah, I see. The contrast definitely emphasizes Coleman's transition from being viewed as an asshole to a hero.
Exactly. Also, I think this undermining effect lets the audience focus more on the aspect of how an act of benevolence can neglect all the immoral acts that an individual has done in the course of his or her life.
I think the theme of the PSA can be noticed here, since the contrast demonstrates how anybody can become hero by donating organs.
Don't you think it eliminates the cultural controversy over organ donation?
I think the cultural controversy of organ donation is negligible in this case because we're using Coleman as an embodiment of anyone in America.
By ignoring the cultural perspectives, I think the announcement can better convey the message that anybody, even jerks like Coleman, can become heroes by signing up for organ donation.
I see. Oh, what's in this panel? I see a bunch of people with a smile. That's not really what I'm used to seeing in this advertisement. I think you're using a lot of elements of juxtaposition and contrast. This definitely contributes to the plot twist effect, and I think the audience will be even more influenced by such elements.
Yes, I basically added 4 people who received Coleman's organs. For example, I added a father of 2 getting his liver, and also a teacher who received his heart. I think by adding these, I can create an appeal to pathos for the audience.
Definitely. After looking at agitated people, looking at bright smiles will lighten up the mood and imply that organ donation brings joy to many lives. I think that will convince the audience for sure.
Exactly. And it also acts as an informational element, since it implies how one person can save multiple lives. I'm sure this is an appeal to logos, since this information is conveyed anecdotally. The audience will be able to digest the information more efficiently than having the audience read through long lists of facts encouraging organ donation.
Oh, and I noticed that you added blank panels. What is that for?
As the announce... Wait, no, you can talk.
Okay, so as the announcement comes to the end, I think it'll be effective to quiet down the music to let the audience reflect on their understandings of organ donation and its potential to save many lives. Then, in clear and large fonts, I am planning to write even an asshole can save a life, and to add the logo for Donate Life.
I think the words on the screen is a great idea.
Yes. Also, while the audience is reflecting, by adding the words, we can reiterate the theme of the PSA. And I think that this will persuade them to donate organs. Also, the Donate Life logo adds ethos, which adds reliability and credibility to the PSA. This reliability is an appeal to the ethos, right?
Yep. Tell us more about it, Leo.
I think with reliability, the audience will be able to entrust the anecdote and fully absorb the characteristics and contrasts that are portrayed in the announcement. Also, the credibility helps eliminate doubts in the audience, which will eventually facilitate the process of persuading them to become organ donors.
This has to be one of the best storyboards I've ever seen made in my career. To be honest, I've never had an advertisement or a public announcement that's such a perfect amalgam, or amalgam, thank you,
Yeah.
or a mixture of rhetoric and literary devices.
Exactly, same here.
So I'll photocopy this whole thing, the storyboard, I mean. And since this whole conversation was being recorded, I'll also send the recording to you just in case, so that you can work on it with spec.
Oh, yeah, good idea.
Leo, can I have your business card, please? Because I want to keep in touch with you for other projects.
Sure, here you go.
Thank you.
Do you want to grab a quick coffee before you go?
No, I'm fine, but thanks for the offer. I have to get going. I have another client to deal with.
Well, all right then. Thanks for your storyboard, Leo. I'll send you the YouTube link after it's published.
Yep, thanks for having me.
And Mumford, I'll see you in a few weeks. I'll be expecting the full PSA to be done.
It will be done. See you guys.
All right, Spec. Today will be the last meeting with Mumford. Did you read his email?
Yep, the one with the PSA titled The World's Biggest Asshole.
Yep, that's it. What did you think about it?
Oh, well, I love the characterization and the irony. It fits the target audience perfectly. And I think that this announcement will be very successful in convincing the public to become organ donors.
Oh, haven't you heard? The announcement was so successful that there's an out-of-home advertising running in selected markets and even murals in selected areas.
Wow, that's impressive. Let's ask Mumford about the responses he got from the audience.
Hello, Gordon.
Nice
Long
to
time
see
no
you.
see. And I'm assuming you're his colleague, Spec?
Nice to meet you. I'm the manager director of Furlined.
All right.
We watched your PSA on YouTube, and we're just curious how the public actually took the announcement. I mean, it had a lot of black humor that can potentially aggravate many in a society like ours. So it was a risky approach, wasn't it?
I've had mixed reviews. Many mentioned how the language of the advertisement was too vulgar to portray the benevolence of an organ donor.
I'm sure that those who said that are ignorant, since They don't know the effect of irony on the story. I believe that by having such contrasting traits, the fact that organ donors can be anyone and that anyone can show an act of kindness is emphasized even more. You shouldn't be discouraged by those comments.
Oh, thank you. Some also said that the final scene in which the organ receivers are all at his graveyard had the most effect in delivering the message.
I think that people consider that as the best scene because it contrasts with Sweeney's portrayal in the first few scenes of the announcement. Sweeney never got respect from others because of his demeanor, but after a show of generosity that saved multiple lives, the final scene shows how he's being treated as a hero. This definitely would urge the audience to want to become an organ donor. Also, the words, even an asshole can save a life, belittles such an act of courage, which makes the audience think that the best and easiest way to become a revered hero would be through organ donation.
I agree with you, Spec. This ad shows that even though you're able to personally relate to the protagonist, when you do a good deed to redeem yourself, you can sign up as an organ donor.
It was not the first time having our two agencies work together, but I really appreciate your contribution to this PSA. I take your efforts as a tribute to my deceased brother, and I hope many millennials can relate to this PSA and the Donate Life organization has an increase in organ donors in the near future.
No problem, Mumford. We had a lot of fun pitching ideas for the announcement.
Well, I hope our agencies work together in other projects as well. We're out of time, so contact us anytime, Humphrey.
Well, Spec, Gordon, it was a pleasure working with you, and I'll make sure I keep in touch. Thank you.
Bye.